Okay, I'm gonna make you host. If you could just make me co-host after.
You got it. All right, everybody, thanks for joining. We're going to give everybody else a couple minutes to come on in. But thank you for giving us part of your evening.
And it improves your retention.
Technically and generally, it is, but it depends on one big ever-changing.
Hi, good evening.
Hey, welcome, everybody. We'll get started in just a minute as people are trickling in.
I'm on the CEC meeting now. Can I call you after?
You were once a professor of psychiatry specializing in.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. A couple more people are trickling in. Hopefully you are all here for the CECD2 Students in Temporary Housing / Students in Economic Need meeting. And if not, that's what you're going to hear about tonight. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. We'll get started. It is Thursday, October 13th at 7 o'clock. And so we are here to talk about issues related to students in temporary housing within the District 2. And we have invited a couple of speakers. Unfortunately, one of them who deals with one of the largest shelters in District 2 and who we had invited to join us tonight is dealing with an emergency and so may or may not be able to be here. But hopefully we will be able to hear from another one of our local experts, Iris Gersten, who is the coordinator for students in temporary housing in District 2 and District 3 and might be able to give us an update on what it is that's going on. And in the meantime, we can wait to see whether or not Ms. China Rivera is able to join us as the shelter director of one of the largest shelters in the district. And in the meantime, we can also talk about what has been going on across the district, plans and other ways that we can move forward. Iris, are you available to give us any kind of a update? And I would be happy to introduce you if you are.
I'm happy to talk to you. I can't start my video because the host has to do that. I'm sorry.
Ah, okay. Chanel, do you know how we do that?
Yep.
We allow people to turn on their videos.
Yeah. Do you want to
Allow everyone to turn on their videos.
You can watch the show.
Yep. You should be able to now.
Okay.
You'll have to make Iris co-host also.
No, you don't.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
All right, so it is my pleasure to introduce Iris Gersten, who has been a champion in this world of students in temporary housing in District 2 and District 3 for a long time and has provided us with a lot of information and wise counsel. Iris, take it away. The floor is yours. Please feel free to let us know any and all of the things that are going on.
Okay.
We know it's an ever shifting and changing landscape.
We have several asylum shelters now in District 2. We have developed bilingual programs, but I'll let Kelly McGuire speak to that because he's the pedagogue here. We are enrolling children within 24 hours of their arrival at the shelter. We are developing, as I said, as we move into a school, we develop bilingual programming. I'm doing donations. And we're going to have a coat drive at the beginning of November. I've also written to Operation Warm to see if I can get coats there. I'm also looking at the DOE that they're getting coats. So we're looking to outfit people with coats. Now I'm looking for children's clothing and shoes. Got 500 pairs of sneakers. They are sitting at the Skyline. The children at the Skyline will get the sneakers first and the parents as well. And then I will go around in my car distributing them to other shelters. Families are very excited to be here. The kids are very happy. They're happy to be in school. What else can I tell you? I mean, do you want specifics on things?
Sorry, are you able to tell us anything about the
row?
Number of shelters, the row that we just saw some headlines that is going to be housing 200 families, the stability of the shelters, etc.
Okay. In District 2, we now have, I believe, 10 shelters. We have one permanent shelter that will be for, I believe, New York City residents on 41st Street. It is a tier 2 shelter, which means it has more amenities. It has the capacity for cooking, as opposed to the hotels where you get 3 meals a day. DHS has rented little hotels in the areas between 44th Street to 48th Street. They are now staffed by outsourced companies that have been worked out with DHS. There aren't vendors in most of the shelters. So here, if you want to make a donation, you want to bring things to a shelter, the people that are running the shelter right now are not DHS staff and are not a vendor like Acacia or Children's Rescue Fund. They're run by an outsourced group, and their concern is to deal with operations, make sure the place runs, make sure the families are fed, but that's their only job. We are in the process of getting names of people, phone numbers. You know, we go into a shelter to enroll kids and find out what's going on. And I don't have paperwork. I don't know who the kids are. We go, we knock on doors. We have families come downstairs. Frequently, not all the families are there. We have to go back to the shelters. I have no staff in these shelters. And I need bilingual staff. So concomitant with doing this with people I have pulled out of school, my community coordinators, because they're bilingual, I've also been interviewing to get more staff in. Once I get staff in the shelters, every child will be accounted for. We'll be able to know what the needs are and we'll be able to service them better. And I'm hoping that's going to happen within the next month. I did my second round of interviews today. I know who I'm hiring, and now I have to attend these people. And then we'll begin working with families. What else can I tell you?
So there's a couple of things that I'd love, that I've learned from you over the years related to coordination between Department of Homeless Services or housing here as well as the Department of Education. Can you talk a little bit, because I think a lot of us are very interested in specifically that disconnect and where people might be falling through the cracks?
Okay, so, and I think that's very important. I get a group of children, maybe the school comes to the shelter, maybe we walk them over, we take the train over to the school. The children get enrolled. I get a list of children. I get their OSIS numbers and I get their address. I go to DHS to have them fix the transportation page in CARES that allows for busing. Once they do that, I go to OPT and tell OPT these children need to be routed. The disconnect can be if DHS does not attend to it, I can't get children busing. And if you're busing children across town, it becomes an issue. It becomes even worse when you have children in flip-flops, children in shorts, children with inappropriate clothes. So concretely, there's a perfect issue to what you're addressing.
Okay, before we get to the donation side of this, because I think there's a lot of people who are very interested in that, I'd love to also hear you and Kelly perhaps talk a little bit about the coordination related to schooling for these children. If you can help us just get a sense, Iris, from your perspective, how they go in, and then Kelly, especially Spanish speaking or dual language students, and what the school's reactions are and where they're going, et cetera, how we're keeping track of them.
Well, I can start. Iris, you can fill in any holes that I'm missing when I share this. So generally, the way that things have been going is that we've been in close communication with Iris and her team, who have been working directly with the shelter. They let us know when a new shelter is opening, so that we can pull together our district team and have our district team coordinate with the folks who work directly with Iris in the Office of Students who live in temporary housing. In the past, what we have done is deployed our team who meet up with Iris and her team at a school to help to register kids. As a part of the registration process, we're taking demographic information about all the kids, getting to know how old they are, the last grade that they completed, whether or not they've had any interruption to their schooling in addition to the time that it took to travel from wherever their home country was to New York. Obviously, there was a period of time where their education was interrupted. So we're getting all of that information and then figuring out what the best place is to provide them with to teach them and put them in whatever class it is that we think is going to be the best one to serve them. In cases in which we have a significant number of kids in a particular grade that only speak Spanish, then that's when we'll move to set up a transitional bilingual class. And the transitional bilingual class is initially taught in Spanish, but the intention very quickly is to move from Spanish to English. In fact, I was at a school yesterday, and one of the teachers that we visited who was teaching in Spanish let me know that I should come back in a couple of months and I should see how much English the students were speaking in class and how much it is that they learn. So that was a pretty cool thing. This is a teacher who taught in another state and had taught a bilingual population in another state, but felt very confident that he was going to be able to accelerate the English language acquisition of kids in the class. And so that's exciting. So those transitional bilingual classes, I think, are a really great model for us to use when we have a large number of kids that are in a particular grade level or that are in two grade levels. The regs around a transitional bilingual class is that kids can be in, it can be a bridge of 2 grades. So you could have a kindergarten first grade, a first grade second grade, and so on. You can't bridge 3 grade levels. So you couldn't have a kindergarten first, second grade bridge class. And so what we'll do is we will begin to work with the population of kids that are in a school, the resources that are currently available, and then we'll figure out whether or not we need to hire in a new teacher to teach a transitional bilingual class, whether or not we need to hire in a teacher of students who are learning English, an ENL teacher, English as a new language teacher, to serve kids either through push in or pull out. You can kind of think about like the economics of this in a school. You wouldn't necessarily open up an entirely new class for 5 kids or 10 kids. So we want to make sure that there is a large enough group for us to be able to serve in a transitional bilingual class.
Can I interrupt you there just to ask a question then about numbers?
Yeah.
What are the kind of general, I'm not going to ask you to give too many specifics here because I know you can't, but, you know, under 5, you know, elementary school, middle school, high school level, are you able to give us that kind of detail around District 2 at all?
Do you mean the total number of kids in a school or how many? Yes, the total number.
Yeah, just, I mean, the total number that have come through. I think we all as parents also want to get a sense of how many new students there are in the district.
Yeah.
And, you know, elementary, middle, and high school level.
Yeah, I mean, this is, it is a very quickly changing situation. I think during the CEC calendar meeting on Tuesday, I said that we had probably about 300. I wouldn't be surprised if our number now was closer to 320, 340. It really is changing. I spoke with a principal in one of our schools that had 30 students at one point, but now only has 20 because families do make different choices about where it is that they're staying. Some might leave and go and stay with family in other parts of the Northeast and other parts of the country, frankly. So it is changing, but I would put that number probably between 300 and 350 right now total. With the number of kids that's it just really is changing, and I think that we'll see more. You know, the Row Hotel was spoken about in the paper. That's the information that we have so far. The families from the Row Hotel haven't. I don't think that they've arrived, or they haven't. They certainly haven't enrolled in our District 2 schools yet, so we're waiting to see. All throughout this situation over the past 5 weeks or so, we get word that, you know, a large number of kids is going to be enrolling in a school, and then the weekend will come, and then that number will have changed over the weekend. So it is just something that is fluid, but I feel good about the fact that we have a real plan now for when families do arrive to a shelter, and a way for us to make sure that they're enrolled quickly into a school, a way for us to gather good information about who the kids are and what they need, a way for us to look at what the school's current resources are, and how it is that we can utilize those to service the kids who are there, and then who it is that we need to be in touch with in the budgeting office, in the central office, to be able to pull in more resources quickly. Today, what we did also was that we worked on kind of a phase 2 plan. I know that a lot of schools are working with, a lot of schools are not, this is new to some schools have, you know, historically had 2% kids with who are learning English. And now it's 20%. So it's, I don't think that it would be unfair to say that this is without its challenge. It certainly is. And I understand the stress that a teacher may be dealing with in trying to figure out how it is that they're best serving all of the students that are in the classroom. But that's what where we're at now with phase 2, and really thinking about how it is that we are going to help and support teachers with the kind of curricula that they need, and how it is that we can really utilize all of the services that are in a school. Just to be clear, it's not like the one classroom teacher is in charge of teaching a group of kids all day long. In a classroom, there are E&L teachers who are pushing into the classroom or pulling out of the classroom. Schools have hired a bunch of paraprofessionals who are bilingual to help to support language needs. And so we are, working with it and responding to the kind of ever-changing landscape that we're dealing with here. But it's been to be.
If I can ask you and Iris to pivot a little bit based on some of the comments that are coming through.
I will. I want to add.
Okay, please.
I want to add to it a couple of things. One, Kelly is addressing the elementary and middle school. He's not mentioning the high school kids. We have plenty of those high school kids as well. So I'd say the numbers were at least a couple of hundred higher from what I've seen. That's one. Two, donations and the link to donations. Somebody asked about that. Here's my problem. We need donations. We want donations. Unless you've got a permanent shelter director, I am frankly uncomfortable, nor does the outsourced agency want to be responsible for shelter donations. So until they bring in a vendor, what we have been doing is working with the schools and having fairs. We did it at 111. I believe Stephanie Lucas is on this call tonight. She had something that was fabulous yesterday. I don't know what 33 is planning, but it's a nice thing to do to have a fair where parents can go ostensibly and shop. And for the children that don't attend those schools, we can send flyers out to those schools for them to come and pick up stuff. That's my immediate idea, because I'm telling you, with the exception of the Skyline and the Marcel, I don't have a director in the shelter, and I am uncomfortable leaving stuff with people that change every day and families not getting the goods. Insofar as health, someone asked about medical needs, totally agree with that. Above and beyond the acute medical issues, there's the issue of immunizations. So we have places that we refer to, but I was in what do you call it, community board 4 meeting. Somebody from the Henry Street settlement. I'm talking with different places about having a day for our asylum seekers to go get vaccinated. We have been referring to the floating hospital. We have been referring to the Ryan White Clinic. The Department of Health will give you vaccinations. Health and Hospitals Corporations will. Here's the problem. Communicating this to the family in the shelter is next to impossible because A, I don't have staff in there, and B, I don't know how many case managers, like they have case managers, 40 families to one case manager. It's a lot of work. So then it falls on the school to speak with parents as well, but know that we are addressing it. We're off to a slow start. It's going to happen.
Okay, so there's 2 people with their hand raised, but I do want to make sure that somebody also comments about medical and mental health support and where that comes from, whether it's the DOE or a different agency. But before you answer that, Robin's been waiting patiently.
So Iris, thank you so much for all of your assistance and your help over the last couple of weeks. 33 yesterday had a giveaway. We had boxes and boxes and boxes of donations, and we opened it first to the families at our school. We have about 60 students right now, possibly more. I don't know about the last 2 days. And then we opened it up to the public after that. If there was anything left, there was nothing left after that. I could not agree more regarding the medical and emotional needs. All I'm hearing is that they need more. And Ushma knows how I feel about this. I know there's so much red tape, but I think that we have to yell and scream and ask for more than this, because the families are still very confused about what to do when anyone feels sick or when anyone has a fever, an infection, and they're also a little fearful of stirring the pot, if you will. So a lot of them are afraid of going to the shelter directors for fear of being seen as a nuisance and, in their words, not mine, not getting the same treatment. They don't want to be seen as pesty. So we need to break through that mentality or that fear and let them know that it's okay to seek help, whether it's in the school or in the shelters. I don't know how it works in the shelter because I understand it's a little bit of a rough culture that they're experiencing. But I also want to say regarding donations, we have a drive, which I mentioned to you at United Nations School that starts next week. Before the drive even started, people started bringing in donations, and the school doesn't want them to be there past 9 a.m. So I was picking them up last week and I was getting a full carload each time. So I can only imagine what's going to happen once the drive actually starts. And I'm going to need support. I understand it's complicated when it comes to where to put everything. I'm happy to keep stuff in my car for a short period of time, a couple of days. I'm happy to reach out to Anthony at the NYMA or let you do that if that's better. If not, I can try to arrange with the families that I know at 33 or go to D3 like you suggested, or China Rivera.
The shelter director in D3 is covering 3 asylum shelters.
Mhm.
It's from Children's Rescue Fund. She's there, and there are families there. It is the Apollo, the Ellington, and Central Park West. So if you want to give donations to children who are asylum seekers that don't necessarily attend your school but would benefit, I can arrange that in 15 minutes and she'll take it willingly.
Yep.
There are things going on in NYMA I cannot address. I just can't.
No, I know.
And I'm uncomfortable with that, but you have relationships. I just know that I have to be, for me to get into the shelter, to walk in there with the staff, you have to introduce yourself. And not the group that's in there doesn't see the same picture that we see. They don't necessarily have the compassion and the caring. And until they leave and a vendor comes in, I am very distrustful of leaving stuff there because I don't think it'll get distributed. Look, I've done Operation Backpack for the last 6 years with Volunteers of America, and I accounted for every single one of those backpacks doing the counts. And I can tell you that people in the shelter rip off stuff all the time. So it's nicer to do it at the school or to do shopping at the school, but I don't want to tax principals and school staff.
But that's why we need more staff at the school level too. We need more staff to help support the principals.
You're not going to get more staff at the school level.
But I guess that's why not? Why can't Project Open Arms bring in staff? I just read an email about this. Kelly, why can't we have more people at the school level helping sort?
Are you talking about volunteers or are you talking about?
No, people who are paid. Like, why can't the DOE send in some more people to help the principals so that the principal, the vice principal doesn't have to stay on Fridays for 3 hours sorting clothes?
I mean, we have put out a call for volunteers for anybody who works in the Department of Education who wants to come in and help to do that.
But why can't we spend money on that if we're getting money?
If the Department of Education Central Budget Office wants to allocate funds to hire folks to do that, then I think that it would be more than welcomed.
Who's meant to ask? Is that you or is that us?
I mean, honestly, I think that there are a lot of different issues that are needed amongst families, right? Like there are mental health services that are needed. I think that's a couple people mentioned that in the chat. We're working on hiring bilingual teachers. This is where I am putting our priorities on being able to provide direct services and supports to kids. And frankly, I think at this point, the PTAs in schools are doing a really, really great job of being able to support schools with clothing drives, with sorting clothing. And we're working on hiring teachers and getting mental health supports into
The
schools.
problem with the PTAs is that they're getting mixed messages because the principals are getting overwhelmed with too much donations to sort, and they don't have the time to sort. So they're putting halts on these donation drives, even though people have their donations, people are actually keeping them at home because they're not sure when to bring them in again. So they're not getting to the schools because the principal's overwhelmed. The PTA can't be responsible, for doing this entirely. It has to come from more of a central office if it's really going to be effective. If the shelters can't take this stuff and the schools are meant to, but the principals can't sort, there's a huge, block in the supply chain.
I mean, I think that people have asked in different communities, parents have asked how it is that they can help to support. This is the way that parents can help to support.
By bypassing what the principal's saying? I mean, if the principal can't sort it, how can they? So we stopped our drive at 33, just saying.
Show me what, show me what.
I have so much to give, and there's a company that wants to donate coats in all sizes, brand new, and that's lined up, but I'm just waiting for, I'll speak with Iris about District 3, but I also want to serve District 2 since that is our district. I'd like to serve both.
So I think what you're seeing here, and especially that Robin is helping to elaborate on, is that everybody wants to give, and we all see what the need is, and we're trying to find the central places to help coordinate this and who that can be. I know I invited some people from Eric Botcher's office as well as Mark Levine's office, and trying to work with and through them towards seeing who in the community can be partners here. But there's a lot of different moving parts around all of this. We're going to keep pressing on this. And Kelly, I do think that Robin and I in particular would love to work with you towards figuring out who we could potentially press for in an advocacy style manner for more funds, more people, more bodies, and more means of being able to help. But perhaps we can continue that conversation. I see Josephine and Tom also have questions, and I have another question as well about medical vans that somebody brought up in the chat as well.
I thought that was a great idea. I'm investigating that.
Okay, I think it's a matter of, I can marshal a giant number of Spanish-speaking medical school students, MD, PhD students from across the city to staff them, or every single hospital has diversity drives around this, so Spanish-speaking doctors to put on health fairs and things. So it's just a matter of, who do we ask for permission, or do we just do it? Sorry, I cut in line again. Josephine, you had your hand up.
Hi, I'm Josephine. I'm with Community Board 4. And we basically cover, our schools are all on the west side, Midtown Manhattan. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to Kelly and Iris, who've been doing this work for years, since the hotels began filling up when I was on the CEC 5 years ago. And we're overwhelmed, and it's a lot of work, and this is going to take some patience and some time. I'm not sure about the drive at 33. I didn't know that had shut down. I actually have been passing that flyer around. I know plenty of parents who would be more than happy to come in and help sort clothing. I know that this is an enormous stress right now, time for teachers and all DOE employees. So if that's something that is the principal that Cindy Wang can work with, I know her very well, and all she has to do is reach out. I'm more than happy to come in and bring some other moms and help do that work. We are doing a coat drive. There are multiple drives going on, but we are doing a coat drive at Metro Baptist Church. The drop-off will be November 19th. They have quite a large space, so we're hoping to get a large number of donations. And I'm also working with Ushma on setting up multiple Amazon wish lists just for the shelters, as Iris says, that have nonprofits in them. So that would be the Skyline and whatever else would happen to open up that actually had a nonprofit, as like Acacia. So my question really was, I know that Kelly had mentioned that his eye is on for some social workers, and I'm just asking, what can we do as a community board to help make that happen? And also, is the DOE looking at putting any kind of programming into the shelters a couple of years back, I think before the pandemic, we had some arts and reading programs. And so, things like that might be helpful for these kids in terms of anything extra they can do for after school and on the weekends. Thank you so much.
Kelly, I'm going to address that. Insofar as after-school programs, okay, schools have Title I funds, which were doubled because of the pandemic. So schools have money for STH students. Depending on how many STH students they have in the school, depends on how much money they get. The cutoff is the end of October. They do a count. What I have been suggesting to principals that have paid after-school programs, because many of them do, is maybe you want to use your Title I funds to send these kids to after school. In regards to doing programs in the shelter, I need space and I need a CBO and I need a lot of money for my own program. My executive director is gone. I am inundated with 11 shelters. My first and I'm the one that would solicit for programming and bring in a CBO. Josephine, I think it's a great idea. I just can't, I've got too much on my plate I have 10 shelters and I go there and then the kids aren't there and I have to go find the kids. I can't begin to tell you how difficult it is. Perhaps next year, I can start working on that. That's what I could say about after school programming, but I agree with you. I did get an ESL class into the Skyline with a teacher for the parents. And
That's fantastic.
That's something we can do in other shelters as soon as I get a director. And we can take care of the needs of the kids as soon as I get staff. We have money for staff. We can hire 75 community coordinators. I've been given 6 slots for 10 hotels. And I have to figure out how to work that out. And in a place, for example, like the Skyline that has so many people, in my opinion, you need 2 staff for the Skyline. And with the Row Hotel, which is going to be almost as big, 2 staff. So I don't know what I'm doing. I'm punting. And I spoke with Maria Ortiz and I'm volunteering in the code tribe.
Great, thank you. It'll be great to see you.
I'm getting my own codes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Tom, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question. How long does it take to get a director? All right, so DHS has a shelter and they have to find a vendor that's going to take over the shelter. A vendor is like a CBO or an agency. They contract with somebody, the vendor, gets paid, brings in staff. That could take a couple of weeks. That could take a month. I can't imagine it going longer than a month. I know that Acacia has picked up a lot of hotels. I know that Children's Rescue Fund has picked up a lot of hotels. There are other new vendors that are coming into DHS that I don't know yet. They keep telling me we're going to have a vendor soon, but they're very close-lipped and I don't know what the plan is at DHS.
Tom, go for it. We can't hear you though. Let's see. Maybe try another way and we'll come back to you.
Yeah,
oh, here we go. I just heard that.
Sorry about that. I go from Teams to Zoom and it always messes up. But, we went through this with the COVID stuff, Ushma, right? I mean, it was a great community building, exercise to go through the PTAs and things like that. But there are, children right now in really bad circumstances. And I think time is of the essence. If what we learned, I thought, was that if we just solicit donations, maybe in piecemeal, or large corporate donors, go through one vendor and bring the supplies directly to the kids that need them, we don't have to deal with this bureaucratic nightmare, which is any city agency, let alone the DOE. If you actually want, children to be in a better position, maybe it's not worth waiting to hire more directors and sorting out clothes. And
yeah,
it just doesn't make sense to me if we really care about these kids.
Well, Tom, that's exactly, Josephine mentioned, we and Jocelyn Anchor are all working on putting together these Amazon wish lists, getting them out. Different people on this Zoom are happily emailing me the wish list that they have for their schools, et cetera. We're going to do what we can to be clearing houses for them. But the point that I want to remake that Iris said was right now, there's just people there. There's no one that we can send this to. So we can't just send stuff to a shelter and hope that it makes it to the families. And so that's the disconnect. So until there is someone who actually knows who those families are and can give things away, as opposed to any graft of stuff getting taken, et cetera.
Can't we just send them to the kids at school and have them bring them home?
Well, so that's part of that is part of what we're doing is that there are schools that are setting up community closets, and then there are drives to send things directly to the shelters. So yes, we are working with schools, some schools who are doing this all on their own, not under anybody's direction. What I had put into the chat is maybe we can make sure that the CEC website, amongst others, can collate all of these different wish lists. We are absolutely planning to do what we learned and found so successful during COVID of like sending them around to other schools that might not have as many of these students in them. And the D2 community has been amazingly generous time and time again. And so we're hoping to lean on that again.
And I'm just afraid the problem's going to get worse. They just changed the immigration policy for Venezuelans today in the Biden administration, right? So New York, I mean, they're all going to be coming from Colombian airports. Only direct flights to Miami, New York, maybe a couple other cities. I mean, it just seems like we were unprepared in the beginning, and then we're just going to be even more unprepared during an influx. And it scares me because these are kids.
I think your point about mental health that was underscored by several in the chat is an important one, and we will make sure to turn to that and figure it out. I'd love to then ask Sean Coughlin, who's from Councilmember Botcher's office, to please unmute.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to flag a couple of points. One about the Row Hotel. That's not going to, at least from the understanding that we have from the administration, that's not going to be it's a bit of a contradiction, but a long-term temporary shelter. That's what's going to be called a HERC, which is, I believe, a humanitarian emergency relief crisis coordination site. And that is going to be for families to be at for the first 96 hours that they are in New York. And that site was chosen because it is 2 blocks away from Port Authority, where many of these families are entering the city from. So that, I believe, is not going to be, as we see from like the Skyline Hotel that is run by a homelessness provider, that is going to be run by the Health and Hospitals New York City agency and a state agency that I'm afraid the acronym for escapes me at the moment. But that is going to be more of a triage center where the basic health needs are addressed and the clothing needs and others by the city in that first 96 hours before they are transitioned to a more long-term temporary site like the Skyline is serving as or other locations. So from the standpoint of the effect on CEC District 2 schools, I don't think the HERC is the Row Hotel is actually going to have an effect on that. Obviously, some number of families from that go through the Row Hotel will wind up in a site that goes towards District 2 schools, but that will not inherently be the case for all families that go through the Row Hotel. The other point I just wanted to quickly address that I heard people talk about were programming and services in the shelter. When the council member visited the Skyline Hotel with Maria Ortiz from Community Board 4, we actually saw there was a volunteer performing art classes for the kids at that after school time in the upstairs sort of play area that they've set up for the kids on site. They said that they are more than welcoming of anyone else who can provide any volunteer programming. I know Ushma has the information for China, the manager of operations there at the Skyline. We have also, the council member allocated money to Spanish Repertory Theater to do performances and puppet making workshops for the kids at that site. So we've connected the Spanish Repertory Theater to China in order to make that programming happen. So that's certainly something that is on our mind as well and is happening on that site, both through community-based organizations and nonprofits, as Iris said, that Eric has given money to, as well as volunteers who are just coming in and again at that point just helping and encouraging the kids to draw. So I think they are willing to meet folks where they are on the level of assistance that are able to provide it, whether you're an art history major or you're just someone who likes to draw pineapples. I think there's a place for everyone to help out on these sites if you'd like to reach out to China. And as I said, we're also working with community-based organizations and nonprofits to provide those programming in the sites as well.
Thank you so much for that, Sean. We'll continue to call on Councilmember Botcher's office as further drives are being put forward, because we know your office had a very successful one as well. Chen, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I do. I just want to thank everyone who's been involved in this effort, and I think Ushma, you've been chairing this effort for a while. Also, Robin Kelleher, she's been on site tirelessly with her family too, really engaging the new folks who arrived, making passionate case, and Iris, of course, and everyone else who's been donating their time. And so I just have a few questions and maybe points. I really don't. You guys have been leading this for such a long time. My questions are related to, how has the state of emergency declared by Mayor Adams, how has that allowed us to cut through bureaucracies across state agencies, city agencies, and even between city, state, and federal government agencies? And is there a citywide czar who's responsible for this effort, who we can escalate, issues and things like, just not enough shelter directors, for example. And I do believe that, I think one of the bottlenecks that often happens in these cases is not so much the donations. We have plenty of donations. It's like sitting and being, sitting there, and so many people have opened their hearts and their donations and their, wallets. It's really the coordination points. And I guess all of my questions really relate to all the drop-off points, handoff points, and coordination points that need to be mobilized, and to help the families and children. I don't have, I'm not one of the answers. So I have a lot of questions. So I apologize for that. But I just want to get more information from the questions I asked. Thank you. Thank you so much for everyone's efforts on this.
Jen, did you have a specific person you wanted to answer to that?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe either Iris, if she knows what bureaucracies, or if Superintendent McGuire, if he knows any bureaucracies that have been cut. We talk about the transportation, just the whole bus, the regulations on busing kids to their schools. If we have space in a particular school that's a little bit further out, that it seems that we're not allowed to put them on a school bus. That can we have a temporary stoppage of that rule so that we can enable them because of state of emergency, things like that now we can get approval to overcome some of the bureaucracies and so forth.
Kelly, I can respond to that because I'm doing busing. Okay. I think OPT has really risen to the challenge. I think DHS is trying hard. We need to have a data match between OPT, Office of Pupil Transportation, DHS, Department of Homeless Services. The families that are coming in have often 3 and sometimes 4 names. Culturally, they could be, they're very long names, and it's very hard to get a data match. If somebody screws up one letter in one of those names, they've got to be able to match to get busing. So that's one of our problems. We've had over a couple of thousand kids that we couldn't route because we couldn't find them because their names aren't spelled correctly. They tell DHS one thing, they tell DOE another thing. So we have people on the ground that are going over children name by name to correct the names so that we can provide busing. We have buses, children are getting bused. We are expediting that. It just takes time. And we need DHS's cooperation to do their part for us to bus children.
Thank you, Iris. So in terms of like, when you need help, do you have someone in the city level that's like directly reporting to Adams, Mayor Adams, that will help you escalate and make things happen? Do we have that such a person?
That's a very interesting question. My executive director has resigned and there's nobody in charge. I am very middle management and I reach out to people I know that I can rely on. Is that enough said?
Well, maybe our committee can, or at a CC level, we can also like make some noise and help find, get contact points who can help escalate. That's just you're way ahead of me on all of this. So just a small suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Ushma, actually, and Chanel, I'm wondering if there's a woman, Melissa Ramos, who is now in the meeting.
Yes.
Could you promote her to co-host or whatever it is that she needs to do? Chien, I think you raise a really good point about having a single point person that can help to support this effort. And so Melissa is actually our point person for the Department of Education. And she has just joined the meeting. And Melissa, I don't know if you want to share anything in terms of coordination of services and things like that.
Thank you, Superintendent McGuire, and thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight. So first of all, Iris, thank you so much for everything that you just said, because now I can go back to OPT, and I actually have a meeting with DHS tomorrow to talk about data matching. So it's interesting because this is another layer that can be brought up in that meeting. So to Iris's point, yes, we no longer have Mr. Mike Hickey with us, and we wish him well. But in the interim, we are going to announce point people. But for the citywide effort, I am meeting with superintendents and elected officials on a regular basis, providing my email and phone number so that way escalations can come directly to me. So in fact, thanks to Iris's good work, some of her escalations have that are directly related to OPT have actually come to across my desk, and we are working with OPT to resolve them, and Kevin Moran and his team. So we really thank our regional managers for being our on the ground eyes and ears. Additionally, you mentioned the coordination for donations, and this is something that we are partnering with City Hall on. The DOE created something called the donation management system. They are two simple forms that you can fill out to either offer donations or to request donations. Our mighty but small team is looking at this dashboard and making strategic matches with the right schools to provide those goods. But on a much bigger level, we are coordinating something called borough response teams, and I am going to share the sign up form. We have had a great response, and we just launched the form last week. So if you are interested in joining your borough's response team, these teams are responsible for helping us to coordinate drop-off points, storage points, festivals and events where we can get the information, where we can get the goods to different shelters and different schools. We're also looking at how we can set up clusters of schools and shelters where organizations and donors can adopt those clusters. So really making sure that one school isn't getting 13,000 coats, but not enough hats or gloves, and really being purposeful on how we coordinate those. We have been slow to launch the borough response team in Manhattan. The first two that launched were Brooklyn and the Bronx, but Manhattan is on the way to be set up this week. In fact, I am going to send out an email to those who expressed interest tomorrow so we can meet very early next week. I will share my email and my phone number in the chat along with the sign up form, but please continue to escalate your concerns to Superintendent Kelly, to myself, now that you have my contact information. I will end by saying this. We know that we have work to do. This is an unprecedented event. It is a huge crisis. Our families need our support. We have some amazing people on the ground doing incredible work, but we need more help and we need better coordination, and we acknowledge that. And so your feedback to us is most important. So anything that you can escalate to us is not too small. It's not too big. We need to know what's happening. So please take advantage of me as a resource. I won't always have the answers, but I know people like Iris with whom I can partner and figure out what are the best next steps for us. So I'll stop there in case anyone has any questions, and I will definitely include all my contact information in the chat.
Thank you, Melissa. That kind of a clearinghouse sounds like exactly what we need. Having said that, while we were talking, Chanel also put together a really wonderful Google Drive for anybody who's on here right now, where we are collecting everybody's wish lists. Everybody. So I'm going to put that into a chat right now, or Chanel, would you drop that in the chat for everyone? What we're asking you to do is, if you are representing a school or a shelter and you are listening to this message right now, please put the link to your wish list in there. And we are asking for your name. This is only going to go to Chanel, me, and Ben Morden, probably the CECD2 president. And we will be able to work to get your lists out to other schools within the district. Okay. And Melissa, thank you for sharing your contact details as well. I will be in touch with you tomorrow so that we can do the same thing there around the resources that you're able to present here in terms of coordinating all of us. I think is exactly what everybody is looking for here. Where can we volunteer? Where can parents come together? I saw Helen Guo said something in the chat as well around how can I help as a parent? Robin just put something in the chat around needing help gathering these donations and perhaps bringing them to clearinghouses. So I think what is so buoyant is seeing this group of 48 people taking an hour out of their Thursday night after coming to meeting after meeting this week that all want so much to help. So thank you, everyone. Kalani's got an SUV. I love this. I love seeing this community. This is a brilliant and beautiful thing because we all want to help. So Melissa, I'll get your information. I'll give you a call tomorrow. We'll see how we can blast this out to the community, at least the 48 people who are in here right now.
100%. If I could just end really quickly with an example of what this looks like in another borough. We're creating a fall festival on October 22nd, and that fall festival, it's celebratory. It's in partnership with the Bronx Borough President's Office. We're asking NYPD Community Affairs to support as well, and a number of elected officials. And we're using a congratulatory voucher system. So congratulations, you've won a fall festival packet, and that includes a bundle of food and coat and clothing. Again, maintaining dignity is so important. And I just, as a former principal and superintendent and deputy superintendent, having done the work with our regional managers and really seeing the resilience of our family and the support from our community has really just taught me so much more about leadership, and maintaining that dignity is so important. So these events, these festivals where we're celebrating community, but yet offering these resources to family is super important. So if that's something that you're interested in coordinating, we'd love for that also to be part of this work.
Sounds like a terrific idea. And I saw Iris smiling as well. So she's also blesses the idea. All right. Tiffany, I was just, I think I put into the chat, I'm going to make sure that we download this chat and we get all of this really wonderful information of everybody who wants to help. So again, if you have a wish list from your school, please put it into that Google Drive chat. I will also copy all of this and put it in anyways. There's tons of people who are right now like volunteering any of the resources they have. Friggin' love it. Let's get stuff to PS 11 to 111, 51, everything, you know, all of this is really, really wonderful. I love seeing the generosity of everyone. Lupe, you've got your hand up and you have had for a little while.
No, it's okay. It's actually interesting. I'm glad to have heard from Iris and Melissa both, because they really touched on some of the stuff I was going to say as far as the coordination between the city agency and DOE. I will, and just kind of uplift the amount of organizations, the people that have been doing this work for this community long before this happened. They really stepped up, and it was going to take time. A lot has been done in 5 weeks, and I commend Iris, Melissa. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to working with you guys, especially on transportation. So Iris touched on a lot of that data matching that we've already spoke about, and we are working to resolve those issues. But Melissa, you said feedback. I think it's been said a little bit earlier on in the chat, and we've spoken about it, but I think bilingual social workers for these kids has been crucial. And I know parents have asked, how do we get more staff? And I see it coming from a city level because they control our education budget. And so, like, how do we get some of these funds that are there, that are available, to be released before the federal dollars are coming in, so that our schools can really accommodate these kids' needs and supports, especially on a social emotional level. And medically, I know there's a district in Uptown that has had mobile vans offering vaccinations. How do we get that in Manhattan? And I love the idea of doing a borough-wide fall fest. I'm sure Mark Levine would be thrilled to take part in that. As you know, with Ushma and myself, we're borough president appointees. I know I would love to be a part of that coordination. So thank you so much. And we're happy to have, I think everyone's happy to hear that there is this coordination going on behind the scenes. It just takes time. And District 2 has really come together to make it happen. And like I said, a lot of these grassroots organizations that have been doing the work really stepped up. And I'm just happy to see that it's coming together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I want to honor time, and it looks like we're out of time. But and please, Mr. Hernandez, if you want to follow up with me afterward, we can do that. But high level, we know that we absolutely need more bilingual mental health support for our students. Right now, we are prioritizing schools that have the greater influx, and so we are working with our climate and culture team to provide social worker supervisors and social workers to schools, even on a temporary basis, to work with the families and the students. But we know that that's not enough. And in terms of funding, we are working diligently behind the scenes to see what can be done. I wish I could give you a better response, but we know that it is a crisis, and we are working to see what we can do to provide those additional supports. Outside of the funding, we are also doing a call to action where we are putting together a video and somewhat of a campaign to really speak to our retired folks who are bilingual and who were school counselors and social workers, to see if on a volunteer basis they would be willing to support and come back. Again, knowing that this is an emergency and knowing that that doesn't solve the problem, right? That's just a short-term solution. But while we're looking to find a long-term solution, we are also thinking about those short-term possibilities. This is definitely a situation where we have to really think creatively and outside of the box. In terms of the, you also mentioned, and yes, we'd love for you to be a part of the festivals. And I did have a meeting, was part of a briefing with all the borough presidents, and Borough President Levine was there. And I did mention this to all of them. So this would not be new to him. He knows it's coming. And I do want to acknowledge what you said, that this does take time. And like I said, the coordination has been a challenge. It has been. I won't sit here and say that everything has been done the way that to the best that we can. We're learning a lot about this, and so feedback is important. So thank you for that. I think I missed another part of the vaccinations. Yes, so we are working closely with DOHMH, including talking about what it would look like for a mobile unit. We're also because we cannot track data in a very specific way to protect our families. The way that we are tracking data is by looking at the number of students in temporary housing who have a new admit date to New York City public schools after July 2nd. And so we are sharing that data with DOHMH so that way the school clinics and school nurses and providers can really prioritize those students and make sure that we're providing those vaccines and screening to them.
Melissa, can I follow up on a question about that? And maybe Iris, you might know as well. I started to ask a question earlier. I can marshal a giant number of Spanish-speaking physicians, medical school students, et cetera, to provide health clinics, et cetera. How easy is that? Or do I have to coordinate that through DOHMH, as you were just talking about?
If I understand you correctly, you're saying that you have access to these amazing resources and you can we just talk as soon as you get a chance?
Sure.
Okay.
While somebody was talking earlier, I sent a message to the MD PhD students who run our Spanish speaking union of MD PhD students to ask them if they would be interested in grabbing the other medical school students as well, senior, junior, whatever, who all speak Spanish, to see whether or not they'd be interested in running a health fair. And we have like a senior vice president. I work at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and together with New York Presbyterian, Weill Cornell, I am sure that there's a giant number of Spanish speaking physicians who'd be willing to do a health fair or even just set up outside or inside one of these shelters. But how easy is it to do that? Like, can I just work with a shelter director with you, with Iris, to deploy a group of people to go?
So let's work together, because I want to definitely inform City Hall of this amazing resource, and then in concert with them decide how best to coordinate. But I can tell you that we will cut out all the middle people and make sure that we help facilitate this as soon as possible. We absolutely need these resources. So you have my commitment to making sure that we do it as painlessly as possible. So thank you. Please, please, please reach out to me when you have time.
Call you tomorrow.
You know, what we can do is we can offer incentives of donations of clothes if you come for an immunization. We could make it worth their while to ensure that they come.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm saying might be a little bit divorced from immunization. It would probably just be health screenings, et cetera, because this would not be a vendor for vaccinations. If we can figure out through DOHMH, like a vaccination van, one of the things that I think Robin brought up earlier as well was, or maybe Janie said, was how are we knowing like what vaccination these children have? They have like 14-day window to get all of the things that they need, et cetera. What kind of testing is being put in place to see whether or not they ever got those vaccinations as children, because you don't really need them a second time if you did have them in a vaccine series. You can test for antibodies, but that requires that person give a blood sample, all of these tests done, and then they come back for the results and would get, you know, paced out at a reasonable level the vaccines that they need. So that's a bit more complicated than what I think I could have my physician friends supply, but I do think that it's a worthy effort, but a little bit more complicated. Sorry, I realized there was no question in there. Kelly, are there any community schools within D2 that are not within high schools? Like, I know the school that one of my sons goes to does have a health clinic within it, but it's a high school in D2 right off of Union Square. But are there any elementary or middle schools that also are community schools?
We have several community schools and a couple of schools actually that have nurse practitioners working. That's part of the work this year, is actually expanding the community schools within District 2. And so that they would actually be great partners as well on this.
Jen, go for it.
Is that me? Oh, thank you. I don't know if this was asked or answered. There seems to be a policy that allows 18-year-olds and older to be in 9th grade classes. Is that such a thing? And I think that's not appropriate because these are adults in children's classes.
Do you want me to respond to that, or do you want to respond to that?
I can respond to that. You know, the kids who are in high school or high school aged have been reporting directly to the Family Welcome Center and enrolling directly with them in high school. They are not going all going into 9th grade. I saw a mention of something in the chat. They are going into the grade that fits both their chronological age and their last course completed. So this is we're not hearing about kids who are overage, maybe overaged by a year, who might be attending a school, I'm sorry, who might be overaged by 1 year attending a school, a grade that is one below. But for the most part, many of these kids have been participating in high school, have completed a year of school, or had completed their year of schooling before they started making the journey here. And so I think that that work is really being managed directly by the high schools, and they're moving into the grades that are appropriate for their age. So yeah, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not sure where that might be coming from, but that's not what is actually happening.
Yeah, I was looking at, I was shown like some document from, I don't know if it was DOE or somewhere that said for I think students in temporary housing that that might be the case. So I thank you for that. I mean, and in senior year, I've gone to high school with the super seniors, so they're older, so I can understand that, but yeah, the 9th grade is a bit different. Thank you very much for that.
We also have our academic policy point people who work with the schools to support them with identifying grade placement, looking at any transcript materials that the families may have. So just to echo what Kelly is saying, really being thoughtful about age appropriate placement. And in some cases, if a student is 18, 19 years old, we have some fantastic transfer school opportunities for them as well. And so we're working with our partners in District 79 as well to look at what are in the transfer schools to look at some of those options.
There was also a rumor going around that all asylum seeking students are being put into ICT classes. Can you help dismiss that as well?
No, that is absolutely not happening. So first of all, we are also dispelling the myth that all of these students are multilingual learners until they have been tested and identified as multilingual learners. We can't say that they're all multilingual learners, much like we can't say that they are going to need an IEP. There is an evaluation process in place for us to evaluate them should they need to be evaluated. And so no, they are not in ICT classes. If they are multilingual learners, then they will be in one of our programs, whether it's ENL or transitional bilingual or dual language. If that is happening someplace, then we need to know that immediately. If there is a specific name of a school or a DBN, please escalate that to the superintendent and me as soon as possible. But in terms of DOE practice, that is absolutely not something that we would ever support. And it is completely against policy and everything that the chancellor and this administration believes in.
Thank you, Melissa. Lupe.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to address, Chen's question about 18-year-olds entering the 9th grade. I think it might be confusing the fact that, at least I can speak for in Venezuela, a lot of kids can graduate high school at 16. So at 18, the coursework for them may feel like 9th grade. They're not necessarily a freshman, but by that age, some kids are already in college. So I just wanted to address that if there's been that misunderstood. And then also with vaccinations, from what I remember they were, I don't know recently, But even though if they weren't required, I know majority of people get them. It was not controversial. So, but I do believe that those have been entering, especially with young kids that have been born on the way. We want to be able to provide for them, but I don't think that should be as much of a concern as I'm kind of hearing, and or at least put it into perspective that, you know, vaccinations are required for their schooling, and typically they're done a lot sooner, and that may have been just misunderstood.
So this is important for us to flag for our academic policy office. And so I will take this information back to them so we can start surveys some of our high schools and just get a temp check and see what's going on and make sure that we're providing extra support. So thank you, Ms. Hernandez, for saying that. And if I could just circle back really quickly to the ICT, just to close out on this, in case I confused anyone, remembering that ICT classes are comprised of both general education students and students with IEPs. So some of our asylum seeking students could be in those classes as general education students, but what I want to be clear on is that we're not pre-identifying them as students with IEPs and pushing them into ICT classes as part of the special education ratio. I just want to be clear on that. They can be in there as general education students, but we're not saying, oh, you're an asylum seeker, so that means you have an ICT. Into an ICT class you go. Just want to be clear about that.
Thank you. Tom?
Sorry, I was just gonna, isn't it statutory, the age that kids can be in school? So, I mean, I don't even know what the conversation's about. I mean, if they're breaking a statute, they can't do that. It's flagged. So that just seems like rumors that there's 18-year-old. I mean, it's done by statute.
All right, thank you, everybody. This has been a super exciting and invigorating night to see how many people want to help and some of the means by which we can do that. And thank you, Tom. Did you finish your thought? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna get a transcript of this chat and the contact details for everyone that wants to help. Chanel put up our Students in Temporary Housing page on the CECD2 website. That also has the link on there. We're going to do everything we can to work together with Melissa, as well as, you know, hopefully our efforts will be multiplicative, not just additional, to try and get all of this information out. Thank you, Iris, for helping to explain everything and for all that you're doing every day. I think you're a hero. And thank you, Kelly, for all of the advocating that you're doing as well for the students that are in our schools. And hopefully all together we can make a difference. Anybody else have any last parting words, moments, appreciations, etc.?
Thank you, Ushma. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, Robin said something the other night that I think I had maybe said on Twitter like a year ago, like once you see this, you can't unsee it, and you want to do everything you can to help. And this brings an enormous amount of gratification, and I know to all of the people on this call as well. So let's do what we can to help our community. All right, promise to keep everybody updated. You'll get a lot of emails from me if you signed up for this meeting, and hopefully all together we can continue to make a difference. All right, thanks everyone. Have a happy Thursday evening and a good weekend. All right. Bye everyone.